Well, greetings and welcome to another edition of Talk of the Town. I'm Rod Johnson, your host. We got a great program today. So pleased to have with us the State Commander of the Minnesota VFW from right here in Cannon Falls, Duane Hermanson. Hey, welcome.
Thank you, Rod.
Good to have you here. We're going to talk about a lot of things, I think, today. And before we talk a lot about the post you have as State Commander, let's go back to how your military careers got started, you know, back when you made the decision to get involved in the military. Just kind of fill us in.
Okay, well, goes way back. 1965, after graduation from high school here in Cannon Falls, I enlisted in the Navy. And medically, they said I had a heart murmur and they wouldn't take me. And of course, shortly after that, I got married and raising family, and then I got kind of asked by my stepbrother, Randy Miller, I should join the reserves here in Cannon Falls. And I said, I'm too old. I was 28 years old. I said, I got two kids. I know. And so they got me talked into going up to the local reserve center here in Cannon Falls back then. And next thing I know, I'm in the office talking to the first sergeant, and then I was in talking to the commander, and next thing I knew, they were filling out the enlistment paper and swore into the Department of the Army Reserve here in Cannon Falls. Fran Penfield was back then was a full-timer there.
Okay.
So I got my enlistment paperwork done, signed in, got sworn in, and then went back up during the week, and then Fran Penfield administered the induction test. And went up for a physical up in the cities, and nothing wrong.
All right.
And so that was 1974.
Okay. And that started a number of years of you being in the reserves.
Yes, yes. So anyway, then in 1978, I had the opportunity to become a full-time military technician.
Okay. That
Fran also kind of helped me with saying, you should be a military technician with our program. And so that started my full-time career as a federal employee for the Department of the Army Reserve.
So when we talk military technician, explain a little bit more about that.
Okay, we are the civilian element that runs a reserve unit or even work at a command, and civilian. So, but you have to be in the reserves to hold that job.
Okay. If
you ever retire or say I'm done with the reserve program, then in 30 days you get your walking papers and you no longer work for the Department of the Army. So our job is required to be reserve and civilian status.
And that was, like you said, a full-time position?
Yes, it was, full-time. Yep.
Enjoyable?
Yeah, sometimes it was enjoyable. You know how that is.
I know how that is, yeah.
So yeah, that kind of started my career. At first, when I joined the reserves, I was not going to be a career soldier.
That wasn't in the plans.
Not in the plans.
That way,
but when I became full-time, then that made it be the plans. But yeah, you look back now and thinking of the time in the reserves and working full-time for the Department of the Army, it's paying off now.
Yeah.
You know, and anyone that stays in the reserve for 20 years, they do have to wait till they're age 60 to collect their retirement pay. That's probably the only drawback being in the reserve program. But medical and the retirement pay assists you with your Social Security.
Okay. Now you mentioned you said you were too old at 28 to go into the reserves. You ended up getting deployed at even an older age, right?
Yes, I did. I had something about my 8.
Okay.
A number ending in 8. Yes, in 2004, I get an email from my boss out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I was busy working our local beer stand for the American Legion, and one of my employees brought down the email, and July 1st, and I'm reading it like, uh-oh, can't be. And so yes, I got deployed at age 58.
That must have been a little bit of a surprise reading that email, huh?
Yes, it was. I thought, oh no, can't be right. And so of course I had to call my boss when I got back to work after the fair, and she asked me, she said, is there going to be a showstopper that you're not going to be able to go? And I said, well, Goldie, I said, it all depends on my medical status. And remember now, back in '65, they claimed I had a heart murmur. 1967, there was nothing there.
Yep.
So I packed my bags, and it was in August. I had to report out to a reserve unit in Connecticut, because in the federal government, and you're in the military, reserve is federal and guard is state, they can pretty much transfer you anywhere they want,
Okay.
where the need is.
Mm-hmm.
So I got transferred to a quartermaster battalion out in Connecticut, reported out there, and then we spent a few days there to do a goodbye, farewell,
Mm-hmm.
for all the other local areas out there, soldiers out there, and got on the bus and went to Fort Drum, New York, where we did our MOB training.
Fort Drum. My oldest son, Jesse, is at Fort Drum right now.
Right now?
Yep.
All
Mhm.
right, 10th Mountain Division.
You bet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, of course, going through the MOB training, and of course, then they put you through a lot of medical. And so, no showstopper.
Mm-hmm.
And our orders changed many times,
They
like
did.
anything else in the
Yeah.
military. First started out that we were going to be ended up going to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
And from Afghanistan, the orders changed to Iraq. And then all of a sudden, a few weeks later, our orders changed that we were going to be in Kuwait, and we were going to be taking over a command of a deployment and redeployment camp in Kuwait, Camp Victory. And so we changed our whole MOB
So
training.
is that what it
changed.
ended up? It did end up to be Kuwait.
It ended up
then?
being Kuwait.
Okay. Mhm.
Yep. We arrived in theater on October 10th of 2004.
And remained there till.
Till September, I think it was September 9th.
Okay.
Or 11th, somewhere around there, we departed Kuwait and came back to Fort Drum and did our all processing, and it was home before my 69th birthday, which is in September.
Yeah.
So
How unusual is it for your 59th birthday?
59th.
Yeah, 59th.
My 59th
We don't want to
birthday.
get. Yeah. How unusual is it for somebody at 58 years old to be deployed? Is it not unusual, or is it?
No, it's not unusual.
Okay.
The Army regulation is, as an involuntary soldier in the Army, as long as they are 18 months prior to turning 60, you can be deployed.
Okay.
You may volunteer deployment at age, if you can stay in beyond 60, which as a warrant officer, my mandatory removal date was age 62.
Okay.
So realistically, if I wanted to go have the excitement and volunteer, I can volunteer at age 60,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to be out before 62.
Right. Yeah.
So
So, Kuwait. What was that? What was that experience like?
very interesting. My job over there, I'm a quartermaster warrant officer, and I did nothing to do with quartermaster, because like I said, we were in charge of a camp. I was a budget officer, I was their environmental officer, and I was their master driver trainer. So I had 3 responsibilities there in Kuwait. And budget officer was very interesting. I was provided with a $10,000 a month budget
Okay.
to assist with the permanent units on our camp. We had to support them with any logistical that they needed. And so we and another warrant officer, and he was from South Carolina, who got transferred up there, we went into Kuwait City quite often and went shopping
Really? Oh, to get
supplies,
Sure.
equipment, or whatever the other units needed. And of course, we had to go in civilian clothing, because the Kuwait did not want to see us in our military uniforms going into shopping places. And they have Ace Hardware over there. They got True Value.
They do.
They got huge shopping malls in Kuwait City. But the driving over there was something else. You got the Kuwait women over there that do drive cars.
They do. Okay.
And they have their burqas on and all that stuff. And there are various styles over there. It depends on the tribe that they are. And we had them with, that from the veil from the nose down below their eyes. We had some that had the eye slits in their veils and cover. And then we had others that had a sheer mesh, or on their whole face.
Mm-hmm.
And they were driving cars. And there's no speed limit.
Oh, there isn't.
They got speed limit posted.
But nobody.
I'll tell you what. We'd have to drive 80 miles an hour, and we were still being passed on some of the freeways.
Wow.
And so it was interesting.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about the weather. Was it?
Oh,
like hot, hot, hot?
Very hot.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
We had the thermometers, you know, they go up to 100 and, what was it, 110 degree? 120? You know, I think it's 120 degree temperature on the thermometers. And at 10 o'clock in the morning, in the summertime now, it reached 120.
Huh.
And the needle was beyond that by noon. And so you don't really know what the temperature was over there. And the radio stations that you kind of listen to in your vehicle, they don't talk about heat and the weather over there, you know?
Wonder why.
So you don't really know what the temperature is over there.
Spend a lot of time inside, I would think. Yeah.
Yes, you do. In the summertime with our air-conditioned office areas, and my office was actually built into a 20-foot conics. And what the construction crew did is they came in and built in a wood lining inside, and then they threw in like a little window, and they put a window air conditioner in there. And that window air conditioner didn't cool it off well. It was better inside than it was outside. You would stand outside just to talk to somebody for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and your sleeves were down because you can't expose much skin over there to get sunburn. And you'd stand there, and the sweat was just rolling down your sleeves. And then you go back inside. So. And then the sandstorms.
Oh, yeah, I bet
they were something else over there.
And how often would you get a sandstorm? Every
few days.
Oh, really? Wow.
So, depends on the time of the year. I think the winter months were most of the sandstorms. And the spring of the year and stuff.
Yeah, that does not sound good.
No. It was pretty interesting.
Looking back on it now, is it an experience you're glad you had?
Oh, yes.
It is. Okay.
It is. It is. You know, and I keep telling my wife Cheryl that my bucket list is to take her over to Kuwait City someday.
Oh, yeah.
And take her and drive her around. And she thinks I'm crazy. And I said, well, you know, it's pretty safe over there. There were a lot of notices of insurgents to be on the lookout for when we were on the highway in certain types of vehicles. And yeah, there's that threat over there. And there was that threat. My environmental job took me all over to all the desert camps. So we did a lot of traveling over there, and you had to keep your eyes open. And, but yeah, and we had young 20-year-old soldiers that complained when our final mission came through that we were going to Kuwait. And so I looked at them and I said, well, you know, for me, I'll take Kuwait. But I would have taken Iraq if it had to be, because after all, you wear the uniform and you go where you're ordered.
That's right.
And I looked at him and I said, you know, I'm going to be too old to come back again, but you will get your wish. If you stay in the reserve program, you will be back again, and probably multiple tours of duty. And of course, it is happening.
Yes.
And I said the next one probably will be Iraq. And I wish you luck when you get over there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Again, our guest is the commander of the Minnesota VFW, Dewey Hermanson. We're glad to have him here on Talk of the Town. And let's kind of switch gears now and talk about the VFW. So when did you become really actively involved in the VFW here in Cannon Falls?
Well, you know, thanks to the Bob Davis and the Bernie Melter and Dave Bramer and Carl Nelson, when I got back in September 2005, I went to my first meeting at the VFW there in 2005 in October.
That was your first meeting?
Yep.
Okay. And
so, of course, I was still employed at the time because I didn't retire from both the military and civil service until December 2006. And so then when the election year came around at the local VFW post, I got talked into running for, they were going to nominate me for post commander.
Okay.
And of course I was a 30-year member of the American Legion. And the local post Legion here in town, we kind of take what you can get to get an officer to run for a position, someone. And I said, I thought the VFW was strict on running to the chairs. Now the chairs is where you start out as a judge advocate, and then the next year you get elected in as junior vice, and the next year senior vice, and then you become state or post commander. And so Bob Davis goes, Dewey, how many times have you been post commander of the American Legion? You'll handle it. Yeah, but you have a club here. We never had a club in the American Legion. He said, you'll do fine. So I said, okay. So my year started as post commander in 2006.
Okay.
2007 came around and said, oh, Bob comes up again and says, oh, by the way, we're going to put you in for a second term. Whoa. So that ended in 2007 as post commander here in Cannon Falls, and no, 2008. So it was 2006, 7, 7, 8. Yeah, 2008 was when I was done being post commander. Then he comes up. And of course, by then, I went to my very first district meeting in 2007. Same individuals. We want to have you run for judge advocate for the district. Relatively young or new member.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh boy. And then of course in post here in 2008, they elected me in as their post quartermaster, which I've held that position since 2008 here locally.
Okay.
And so that started my involvement with the Veterans of Foreign Wars here in Cannon Falls.
Now people hear about the VFW and they've probably been to the club in town, but maybe some people don't really fully understand, you know, the VFW, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. How would you explain that to someone that maybe doesn't realize what's the VFW all about?
Well, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, back in 1899, when the Spanish-American veterans came home, the Veterans of Foreign Wars is actually the oldest veterans organization nationally in the, actually in the world now.
Really?
In the United States. And there was no medical for those veterans coming home. There was no veterans benefits. They had no jobs, you know, and the government was not taking care of them. So they rallied and they were called the American Veterans of Foreign Service, the very first time that the started. And so they organized, and then they fought with Washington, D.C., out there with the Congress representatives out there back then, to try to get benefits for veterans. And it was later years that it got changed to the Veterans of Foreign Wars, you know, primarily because you had World War I come in there and all that. So the whole concept yet of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, #1 mission is yet today to taking care of our veterans, to make sure that we are supporting them, we are helping them in any ways that we can. And the biggest way we can do that, of course, is going out to Washington, D.C. on an annual basis, and here in Minnesota, up at the state capitol. We are out there fighting in numbers at the national capitol with our Congress representatives and our senators to make sure that they are not taking away the benefits of our veterans.
And that, like you said, is the #1 mission, is to take care of the veterans.
Yes, the #1 mission is to take care of veterans.
All right.
And sometimes it's a job out there. We do get a lot of things that they will support and change their mind to say yes and support these bills. But they earn that right, our veterans.
Now, we talked a little bit about your involvement, local, district, and how about the process where you're now the state commander? I mean, must have just kept going up there.
Yes, I did. I came off being district commander, and at that time, the current state commander came down to my testimonial dinner here in Cannon Falls, and then after the dinner, he come up and said, Dewey, I'd like to have you be my poppy chairman for the state of Minnesota. I thought, oh boy. And I was very involved locally with the poppy distribution here, and so he knew that. And I've kind of picked up the chairmanship job in that here.
And for those that don't know, the poppy distribution is
for relief fund to help our veterans.
Yeah.
And we cannot use that dollars for anything else if it does not deal with helping the veteran. So that was my first time being at the state of Minnesota as a chairman. And then it was coming down that year, I had some past department commanders come up with some support from my district past commanders, and I was asked to run for the state office to someday be the state commander. And I thought, no way. Being a young member of the organization, I thought, you know, I've been at some of the state conventions, and I see some of the people that have been around that are Vietnam veterans and Desert Storm veterans and whatever. And I thought, it's not going to happen. Yeah. And I got told by who was going to be the soon department commander, I think he was senior vice at the time, says, Dewey, you go campaign. He said, you campaign, you hit all the districts. There's 9 districts in Minnesota. He says, get your face out there, let them know what your plan is as a goal. And I thought, well, and then someone else come up and asked me that, and Cheryl was standing there. Mm-hmm. But I thought, you know what? You got to have your support from your family.
I was going to say that. Yep, you do.
And I said, I don't think Cheryl's going to concur with me running to become the state commander someday. And Cheryl says, why not? Well, okay. And she knows I'm very active in a lot of different organizations over my years. I grew up as a Boy Scout in town, a JC member, been a district officer for JCs, a regional officer for state JCs. So she kind of knew that. And I am a volunteer nut. And I thought, well, I had her support. And I said, well, I guess I'll run. So I went out my first time alone to a district meeting and got introduced as a candidate running for Department of Minnesota Judge Advocate. And so I got up and said a few words and kind of explained what my goals were going to be at, what I want to see we do things in the state of Minnesota VFW. And so after that, I was getting ready to go to another district meeting, and my son Curtis says, Dad, you should have somebody be with you and introduce you. You shouldn't go out by yourself. And so that started him traveling with me.
Okay.
And so Curtis and his wife Carrie Ann, and then Cheryl went sometimes. And so the 4 of us would go to different district meetings, and then he'd get up and introduce me, and then I would come up myself and say a few words.
Now, Curtis is the commander of Cannon Falls right now, right?
No. He just got done serving 2 years.
Okay.
However, he is currently the district commander for the 1st District for the VFW.
Great.
My Cheryl,
yep,
just this year, came off being the district president, and Carrie Ann currently is the senior vice president for the district.
So the family's involved.
The family is involved.
Yeah.
My daughter, Denise, and of course granddaughter, actually they kind of run the blood drive here for Red Cross.
Great.
So yeah, it's like all of a sudden I got involved with the VFW, and the whole family's right following behind me.
So Curtis and you are traveling to the districts and doing some campaigning.
Yes, we were. Yes.
So then I imagine then the big election is at the state convention.
Yes, it is.
And that was what, couple years?
June, 4 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
4 years ago.
So that had been kind of exciting.
It was. It was very exciting. And you have to go around the caucus rooms. And of course, then I picked on a past state commander to introduce me because Curtis was busy in the district caucus room as a district officer. And so I had a past commander from Spring Valley take me around and introduce me in the caucus room. So you go to all 9 district caucus rooms. And of course, you come in there and you lay out, again, what you want to do when you become state commander. Then they ask you all the questions. Yep. This is like anything else you've seen before, just like being a politician here. That's what my mind was. And I thought, boy, this is, So you get done with all that, and then on Sunday morning there's the election of officers towards the end of the convention. And if they're uncontested, it's pretty easy. They just make a motion to nominate them, elect them, you're done. Yep. But when you got more than one person running, then you got to go up on the stage.
Speeches?
So 3 of us. Nope, no speeches.
Oh, no speeches.
The speeches are all done because you have the caucus rooms. So you stand up on the stage, and then each of the district commanders go around and tally all the votes, because each post in the district has a delegate number. So like Cannon Falls, when we go to a convention, we carry 9 delegates, votes. Only one person has to be there.
Oh, okay.
And they can cast all 9 votes. And so we're all sitting up on stage, me and the other 2 candidates. And I'm sitting up there, and we kind of shake each other's hands, and they wish them each luck. And I'm sitting up there listening to the tally boats coming in, and I'm just kind of counting in my head and thinking, oh, geez, I'm getting a lot of votes. And so anyway, you have to win by I think it's 2/3
Really?
on the first ballot. Well, I exceeded that on the
You
first
did.
ballot.
Wow.
And I mean, even Curtis was like in awesome about that.
Wow.
And I was even
Yeah.
more thinking, you know, a young member of the organization, and I had that much confidence in those members out there that they voted for me, and the number was just unbelievable.
Yeah. And so once you're elected at that position, then it's just you go up.
Pretty
through
much.
the chairs.
Yes. Right now, there was a time that people would come in, you know, VFW members would jump their name into the pot and run for junior vice or senior vice, or even as state commander against
Okay.
one person. And but like I said earlier, it's a hard struggle to get one person, let alone 2 or 3, running for the same position. So pretty much it's automatic as long as you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
If you're not doing a good job, they might say, hey, we're going to find somebody to run against that person.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I made up to junior vice, and that's, you know, each level, you know, it's kind of a learning curve on what you're going to be expecting when you become state commander,
Yeah.
primary. So I was community service chairman, so I would annotate all the community service reports from all 200 and, well, we got 226 posts now, but I think back then we had 240 some posts. And the numbers on how much money was donated in the communities, how much VFW members were donating their time, how many, you know, hours and all that. And so that was when I was junior vice. And then they elected me in as senior vice. And then one thing that the commanders have always done in the state of Minnesota is they always take the senior vice commander and make him his membership chairman. So you're kind of wearing 2 hats.
Yes.
And so again, there you're kind of getting ramped up to be the next state commander and trying to take care of the membership program and, you know, reporting on that.
All right.
And then of course, June of this year at state convention, then I got elected in as state commander.
Yep.
And so it's been a busy 3 months already,
I
2.5 months actually.
And it's just starting.
And it's just starting. It's young.
Yeah. Again, you're watching Talk of the Town. I'm Rod Johnson, and we're glad to have as our guest today the state commander of the Minnesota VFW, Dewey Hermanson from right here in Cannon Falls. First ever state commander from Cannon Falls, and officially took over in June. The convention, probably, you know, for you personally, next year's will be kind of more your convention, right? The
Correct.
state convention?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That'll be my relaxing convention.
Yeah,
and,
there you go.
That's where I'll be able to hand out all the awards to all the posts that they've achieved this year we're coming into now, from community service to safety to youth programs to veteran programs and all that. And we honor and of course all of our all state commanders. We have all state commander program where we award the best of the best. And of course we do that for quartermasters too at the post level.
Okay.
Recognize them, give them recognition. They deserve their recognition when they do an outstanding job in their local community. And so that's going to be a relaxing time of year. Past state commanders have said to me, and I noticed that this year, we have a midwinter in January. And they were coming up to me prior to midwinter, and they said, yeah, Dewey, your year's going to be starting after midwinter. I said, what are you talking about? I don't become state commander until June. They said, your year starts after midwinter. So the current adjutant quartermaster, after the state convention and installation and all that stuff in June here, or not in installation, I'm sorry, midwinter, hands up to me at the end of the convention and says, here you go. Start working your committee assignments. And we have roughly 40-some committees that we have to appoint VFW members for. And then it wasn't long after, he says, well, how are you doing on your pin design? Getting it worked on. And so, yeah, you may be not the commander yet, but June comes awful fast after January hits. And with all the appointments, you got to go out and talk to VFW members to accept. Yeah, your year starts after midwinter.
Yeah.
And like Gary told me last year, who was last year's state commander, we were at a color guard meeting, because I'm also a member of the state VFW color guard.
Okay. Great.
And I'm also a member of the Military Order of the Cooties, which is an auxiliary of the VFW. I think a lot of people have heard about the Cooties chapters. And there's a supreme level for the national. Well, I'm part of the national color guard for that organization too.
Okay, wow.
So I'm wearing a lot of hats here.
Yes.
And so he says, yep. He said, you wait. He says, it's all yours. I'm not even getting emails anymore.
Okay.
They stopped.
As state commander,
Yep.
what is the state of the Minnesota VFW right now? I mean, what membership? I'm sure you're always looking for new members, but how would you describe right now the current situation with the Minnesota VFW?
The Minnesota VFW right now situation, in 1995, they had 80,000 members in Minnesota.
Wow.
This year, after 20 years, we're at 42,000, a little over 42,000 members.
And why is that?
A lot of it is due to the deaths of our World War II veterans. We're losing them at a high rate. Korean veterans. And of course, now we've been experiencing a lot of deaths out of the Vietnam War, due to a lot of it because of Agent Orange, getting either one type of cancer or something else. So we got to contribute a lot of that into deceased veterans. And of course, then you got some that just forget to pay their dues, and who knows why. But we're having a real struggle on getting our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans to join the VFWs. And this is nationwide.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Well, I have been out on a lot of recruiting tables since
yeah.
I was senior vice, and talking to the young members. And they have a lot of the excuses the same as we all had when we were young, raising our families. When they come home, they don't want to even talk about stuff.
Yeah, I suppose.
They're trying to get their life together. They're raising a family, getting a job together, getting their career organized. And, of course, one of the big reasons is don't need to come into a bar or a club and talk war stories and listen to the old veterans talk.
Yeah.
We got to change that image. And that has been one of my goals as becoming state commander, is to change the image of the Veterans and Foreign Wars and try to get the community to understand that we are a community-based organization. We are here to support our veterans and support our communities, our schools. And yes, a bar like the one here in Cannon Falls, we could not do a lot of the donations that we do in this community if it was not for our bar where we had charitable gambling.
Yeah.
So, yes, we are a bar in Cannon Falls, but I believe that we are here first for the community and our veterans. The bar is secondary, because without it we cannot support our veterans' needs, our community needs. And so we gotta get that image out of the heads of our Iraq and Afghanistan veterans.
And hopefully we'll see that change.
I think we will.
I do too.
I really do.
Because with 3 sons in the military now, and they're all lifetime members of
Correct.
the VFW, by
Yes.
the way.
Yep. Yes.
The VFW makes it, I kind of watch them going, looking at the membership opportunities, and you give them a lot of really great options.
Yes.
They right away say, lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's happening here is that right now the national numbers is about 1.2 million VFW members. And if the number continues to drop, and the national commander, when we go out in chief, go out to Washington, D.C. to talk to our congressmen, our senators, and when he addresses the Veterans Committee out there on why they need to continue to support our veterans' bills out there and not take things away, one day, if we cannot get these Iraq and Afghanistan veterans to even join, they do not have to become involved.
Right.
The involvement will maybe come 10 or 15,
Right.
20 years from now. We will not be a threat to Congress. That's sad.
Yeah. Because like you said, the #1 mission is to take care of the veterans.
Correct.
So membership has got to be, I mean, so important.
It is.
Because in order to go to Washington or do
Yeah.
what you do, you need that income from the memberships and you
Correct.
need members.
Yes. I looked at the stats. As I said, 1995, 80,000 members. We're in 2015. 20 years later, we're at 42,000.
And what
Do the math.
What percentage of, I mean, is that half of the veterans are members or less than half or whereabouts? You
I would
know?
say right now we're probably at least half in membership.
About half.
Yeah,
So,
of what's eligible
okay.
out here by the numbers that we see from national. But yeah, we continue seeing a drop here in Minnesota. We got 42,000 members. That means we lost 38,000 members in 20 years. If we lose another 38,000 members in Minnesota, there will not be a Minnesota Veterans and Foreign Wars in Minnesota.
So that's, yeah, very important membership. So if we have any veterans watching, hey, really consider it, you know, becoming
Yes.
a member. I would certainly, you know, urge all of them.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Almost ready to wrap this up. But,
That's good.
I know you were out in Pennsylvania. Was it July for the
July.
national convention? I mean, that's got to be kind of. I mean, you bring in the top-notch speakers. It's quite a convention, isn't it?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we had, let's see, President Obama was there and spoke to the Veterans of Foreign Wars members and the auxiliary members, because they're part of the national convention also. And, you know, you got to respect the position, and everybody has their likes or dislikes to the current president and as past presidents. But you got to respect the position. We did have one member there that got a little out of hand, and he did get escorted out.
Okay.
And which he should have been. And so that was one of the highlights. Another one of the major changes out there, and I'd like to bring this up on here with you, is national floor we passed to allow men to join the newly formed Veterans of Foreign Wars Auxiliary. It is no longer classified the Veterans of Foreign Wars Ladies Auxiliary.
I never thought of that, but now that makes sense.
They have now opened up to have sons, husbands, grandsons to join our local auxiliary units out here. And that may help our auxiliaries, because we just lost another auxiliary unit up in the metro area somewhere because of low membership. And that's what happens in the VFW organization. If you drop down below 10 members, you lose your charter and you're no longer a post in that community. And the auxiliaries are the same. So I see the future. So that was one of the highlights, besides President Obama speaking there as a president to the attendees, was the change of national organization for the auxiliary.
All right.
And I think it's going to be great.
I do too.
I know in
Like I
Canada
say, I never thought of that, but that makes a good sense.
Well, you know, the VFW should have done this 20 years ago,
Yeah.
because look what they could have had. A lot more membership in the auxiliary unit. And my wife just signed up Tuesday night,
Great.
3 members into the auxiliary that are men.
All right.
And our auxiliary in Canada Falls needs help also.
Okay.
So, yep.
Did we forget anything?
Well, no, I don't believe we did.
Okay.
You know, other than, you know, each year a state commander does have a commander's project to raise money for a certain project. And so this year I picked a newly formed foundation that started up about a year ago, a little over a year ago now. It's called Ars Bellum, A-R-S Bellum.
Okay.
It's organized by veterans, and it's a organization that is helping military personnel coming home that are suffering from PTSD, and their therapy is in the form of art. There are a lot of foundations out here and organizations that are working with our military personnel with PTSD. They're everywhere from horse therapy and a number of them, and other ways of doing it. And they have licensed therapists that go out and help veterans. And the difference with them is, instead of you coming to them as a veteran, they have stood up, now we've stood up probably 5 VFW across Minnesota, and they're going to be going more locations. So they will actually come to that VFW post. It's close in that area, and veterans can go there and be with them. And so that's my project this year. Every
Great.
commander has a project, and so that's kind of one that I picked.
Sounds like a good one.
Yeah, I think it is.
All right.
So,
Well, hey, thank you. So thank you for your service.
Well,
thank
thank
you
you.
for all you've done
Thank
for the veterans, and Cannon Falls is pretty proud of you. So again,
Yeah.
our commander, our guest today again has been Dewey Hermanson. He's the state commander for the Minnesota Veterans of Foreign Wars. He's the first state commander from Cannon Falls, and again, pleased to have him in here as our guest on Talk of the Town. Join us again next time. I'm your host, Rod Johnson. Thanks for watching.